In the quiet forests of Blackwell, where hikers wander and families camp, some people vanish without a trace. But what if someone found evidence of these missing souls? What if that evidence showed something our minds can't accept? When the Miller family disappeared during their camping trip, everyone assumed it was just another tragic wilderness accident. The case went cold. The search parties gave up. But 6 weeks later, a lone hiker's drone captured something impossible in a remote, clearing no human should be able to reach. Something that would challenge everything we understand about our world and what might exist beyond it. This is what happened when someone finally found the Millers. The morning the Miller family vanished began like any other day at Blackwell Forest Campground. The sun filtered through pine branches, casting dappled shadows across their campsite at the edge of Loop C, the most remote camping area. Ranger Wren Tucker remembered waving to them during her morning rounds, Ezra Miller tending the campfire, his wife Gemma organizing supplies for a hike, 12-year-old Nico helping his little sister Sadie tie her hiking boots. "Happy birthday, young man," Wren had called to Nico. The boy had beamed with pride. This camping trip was his birthday celebration after all. That was the last time anyone would see the Miller family intact and normal. 5 days later, the same campsite had transformed into something from a nightmare. Wren stood at its edge, watching forensic technicians photograph half-eaten bowls of oatmeal. A park police officer carefully bagged a child's stuffed rabbit found lying in the dirt. The scene looked like everyone had simply evaporated mid-morning. "Don't understand," Wren muttered, rubbing her temples. "I checked this site just yesterday morning and everything seemed fine." Officer Daphne Orloff, the lead investigator, approached with a leather-bound journal in a plastic evidence bag. "Found this in the father's tent." Ezra kept detailed accounts of their trip. Wren accepted the bag, examining the journal through the plastic. The last entry was dated the previous morning. Day 4. Nico spotted unusual mushrooms growing in a circle near the ridge. Gemma's excited to photograph them for her biology students. After dinner, we noticed strange lights among the trees. 2, rhythmic to be fireflies. Sadie says she hears voices calling from the ridge. Probably just the wind, but we'll investigate tomorrow after breakfast. Lights? Voices? Wren shook her head. There's nothing up on that ridge except for old hiking trails that haven't been maintained in years. "Could they have gotten lost?" Officer Orloff asked. "The Millers camp here every summer." Ezra was an Eagle Scout. These aren't inexperienced hikers who wander off trail. The search began immediately. 50 volunteers combed the forest. Search dogs sniffed items from the family's belongings. Helicopters with thermal imaging swept the canopy. Nothing. By day 3, national news vans clogged the park entrance. "Family of 4 vanishes without a trace," screamed the headlines. Theories spread like wildfire. Kidnapping, wild animal attack, family suicide pact. Wren knew better. None of those theories explained the abandoned breakfast, the unlocked car. With keys in the ignition, all 4 cell phones left charging in the tent. The Millers hadn't planned to go anywhere that morning. On day 7, the search expanded to include caves and abandoned mining tunnels in the area. Still nothing. By the second week, media interest waned. The search parties dwindled. Only Wren remained obsessed, spending her off hours hiking to the ridge mentioned in Ezra's journal. She found the mushroom circle Nico had discovered, an ordinary fairy ring of inky cap mushrooms, nothing unusual. No sign of strange lights, no mysterious voices. Just wind in the pines. On the 14th day, the official search was called off. The case remained open but inactive. The Miller family joined the statistics of people who enter wilderness areas and inexplicably disappear. The campground host cleared out the Millers' abandoned campsite. Their blue minivan was towed to the police impound lot. Extended family claimed their possessions, holding a memorial service where 4 empty urns represented the missing family. Only 2 people refused to move on: Wren Tucker and Daphne Orloff. They met weekly, reviewing evidence, hiking possible routes, interviewing other campers who'd been at Blackwell during that period. One witness mentioned hearing a child's laughter around 2 a.m. the night before they disappeared. Daphne said during one such meeting, "Said it sounded wrong somehow." "Wrong how?" Wren asked. "Like it was coming from everywhere at once." 2. Echoey, even for forest acoustics. They added this to their growing collection of strange details that led nowhere. Unexplained footprints heading toward the ridge, then suddenly stopping. A trail camera that malfunctioned for exactly 6 hours. That night, showing only static, the unusual circular burn pattern found behind the family's tent, as if someone had carefully passed a flame in a perfect circle over the pine needles. "I'm not saying it's supernatural," Daphne clarified after sharing these details. "But something highly unusual happened to that family." As weeks passed, the forest seemed to swallow the mystery whole. The campsite was occupied by new families. Autumn painted the leaves gold and crimson. The Miller case file grew thin with inactivity. Then, 6 weeks after the disappearance, Wren's office phone rang. The voice on the other end belonged to a man who identified himself as Lachlan Reed, a hiking blogger who specialized in drone photography. "I was flying my drone over the North Valley yesterday," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Reviewing the footage this morning, I noticed something, or rather, someone." Wren's hand tightened around the receiver. "Go on." "A family, in a clearing that shouldn't be accessible by trail. They've built some kind of shelter. I'm pretty sure it's them. The missing family from the news." Wren's heart hammered against her ribs. "How certain are you?" "Certain enough that I'm sending you the coordinates and the footage right now. But there's something else." "What?" "In the video, they don't move quite right. And at night, there are lights there. Lights that don't look like any campfire I've ever seen." Wren remembered Ezra's journal. Lights among the trees. Voices calling from the ridge. "Stay where you are," she instructed. "I'm assembling a team. We're going to find them." What they would actually find, however, would challenge everything Wren thought she knew about Blackwell Forest and about reality itself. Lachlan Reed hadn't planned to make history that day. The 32-year-old former IT specialist turned nature blogger had simply wanted dramatic footage for his struggling website, Wilderness Uncharted. 6 months ago, he'd quit his cubicle job, cashed in his savings, and embraced a nomadic lifestyle documenting America's forgotten trails. His subscriber count remained stubbornly low, but the freedom of the forest had healed something broken inside him. Blackwell Forest wasn't even supposed to be on his itinerary. A sudden autumn storm had forced him to cancel his planned trip to Unthinkable, Crater Lake, leaving him scrolling through maps at a roadside diner, searching for a backup destination. "Heard about those people who disappeared in Blackwell?" the waitress had asked, refilling his coffee. "Family of 4. Poof! Gone without a trace." That conversation led him here, trudging up an unmarked ridge with 60 pounds of camping gear, and his precious drone carefully packed on top. Not his most ethical moment, using a tragedy to boost site traffic, but he rationalized that fresh eyes might spot something the official search had missed. The first 2 days yielded nothing but standard forest footage, picturesque but unremarkable. On the 3rd day, he hiked farther than planned, reaching a viewpoint overlooking a valley he hadn't seen on any trail map. Perfect, he muttered, setting up his drone. The DJI Mavic Pro lifted smoothly into the air, its camera capturing crystal-clear 4K video as Lachlan piloted it over the valley. He kept his eyes on the controller screen, watching trees pass below in a green blur. Then he saw it. A small clearing that shouldn't exist according to satellite imagery, and something unnatural at its center. Lachlan guided the drone lower, focusing the camera on what appeared to be a crude shelter built from branches, bark, and what looked like pieces of camping equipment. His pulse quickened as he spotted movement. Human figures. 4 of them. "No way," he whispered, fingers trembling on the controls. He maneuvered for a better angle. A man with a beard. Was that Ezra Miller? The woman beside him could be Gemma, and 2 smaller figures that must be the children. But something was off about their movements, too synchronized, too fluid. And their makeshift home looked bizarre, the branches woven in complex patterns that didn't seem structurally necessary. The drone's battery warning flashed. Reluctantly, Lachlan brought it back, his mind racing. Should he hike to the clearing himself? No. That valley looked at least 10 miles away with no trail access. Night would fall before he could reach it. As darkness descended, Lachlan made camp and reviewed the footage on his laptop. The family resemblance to news photos of the Millers was undeniable. Yet something felt wrong. They moved in unison, like dancers performing choreography. Their shelter featured strange symbols carved into the wood. Most disturbing was the moment. All 4 simultaneously looked up at the drone, their faces expressionless, their heads turning with mechanical precision. "Call the Rangers now, or wait till morning," he debated aloud. His phone showed no service bars, settling the question. That night, as clouds obscured the stars, Lachlan noticed a faint glow emanating from the valley's direction. Rhythmic pulses of bluish light filtered through distant trees, exactly where he'd spotted the family. Sleep proved impossible. Every snapping twig became a footstep. Every gust of wind sounded like distant voices. Despite the chill, sweat beaded on his forehead. Just before dawn, Lachlan jerked awake from a dream of falling into an endless blue void. He didn't remember falling asleep. Grabbing his phone, he checked the time. 5:47 a.m. Perfect for morning. Footage. His drone lifted into the pearl-gray sky once more, heading toward the mysterious clearing. The morning light revealed details missed the previous day. A perfect circle of bare earth surrounding the shelter. Items from the Millers' campsite arranged in geometric patterns around the structure, and strange markings in the dirt that resembled the symbols from Ezra's journal, which Lachlan had seen in news reports. Landing the drone, he transferred the footage to his laptop and watched with growing certainty. This was the missing Miller family. Yet something had changed them. The children's movements seemed puppet-like. The parents' eyes reflected light oddly, even in daylight. Lachlan packed hastily, half sliding down the ridge toward his parked Jeep 3 miles away. He'd never hiked so quickly, newfound purpose driving each step. The world needed to see this footage. The authorities needed these coordinates. At his vehicle, 1 bar of cell service appeared, just enough to call the ranger station. He drummed his fingers nervously on the steering wheel as the line connected. "Blackwell Forest Ranger Station. This is Tucker. My name is Lachlan Reed. I've found the Miller family." Silence then. "Where are you now, Mr. Reed?" "Trailhead parking. For Pinecrest Ridge. I've got drone footage. They're alive, but..." "But what?" Lachlan swallowed hard. "Something's wrong with them. They don't look sick exactly. Just wrong." like they're not quite themselves anymore. Stay there. Ranger Tucker's voice sharpened with urgency. I'm sending you a secure link to upload that footage immediately. Don't share it anywhere else. I'll be there with Officer Orloff in 30 minutes. After sending the files, Lachlan stepped outside his jeep, scanning the tree line. The forest seemed different now, the shadows deeper, the silence more complete. No birdsong, no squirrels chattering. For the first time in his life, Lachlan felt the wilderness watching him. When the ranger's truck roared into the parking lot, he nearly wept with relief. Wren Tucker emerged with a tall woman in a police uniform. Officer Orlov, he presumed. They looked like they hadn't slept in days. Show us everything, Tucker demanded without preamble. As they huddled around his laptop, Lachlan described what he'd seen. The clearing that shouldn't exist, the strange shelter, the family's unnatural movements. And last night, there were lights, coming from that valley. Pulsing blue lights. Officer Orloff and Ranger Tucker exchanged a look he couldn't interpret. We need to assemble a team, Tucker decided. Someone who knows these mountains better than the trails on a map. You're thinking of Clay Martinez, Orloff said. Tucker nodded. If anyone can get us to that clearing safely, it's him. Who's Clay Martinez? Lachlan asked. Former search and rescue, now a hermit living on the mountain, Orloff explained. Knows every cave and crevice in Blackwell, also knows every story and legend about people going missing here. And there have been others? Before the Millers? Tucker's expression darkened. More than the public knows, dating back centuries. Lachlan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. I'm coming with you, he stated firmly. He expected argument, but Tucker merely nodded. You found them. You've earned that right. But understand where we're going. No one has returned from before. The words hung in the air like a prophecy. Dawn broke over the ranger station as Wren spread topographical maps across the conference table. Lachlan's drone footage played on a monitor, paused on a frame showing all 4 Millers outside their bizarre shelter. Officer Orlov took notes while Lachlan nervously twisted the strap of his camera bag. Play it again, Wren requested, leaning closer to the screen. Slower this time. Lachlan tapped the keyboard, and the footage crept forward at quarter speed. The unnatural quality of the family's movements became even more pronounced, their limbs moving with liquid grace yet mechanical precision, as if underwater and robotically controlled simultaneously. That's not how people move, Orloff murmured. Maybe they're injured? Lachlan suggested, though his tone indicated he didn't believe it. A knock interrupted them. In the doorway stood a weathered man with copper skin and salt and pepper hair pulled into a tight ponytail. His face, lined by sun and time, suggested late 50s, but his posture and alert eyes belonged to someone younger. Clay, Wren nodded respectfully. Thanks for coming. Clay Martinez stepped into the room, his worn hiking boots silent on the linoleum floor. He carried only a small pack that looked decades old. Heard you found the Miller family, he said, voice like gravel, his eyes locked on the monitor. Or something like them. Wren made introductions, then replayed the footage. Clay watched without expression, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped the back of a chair. Can you enhance that section? He asked, when the video showed strange markings around the shelter. Lachlan zoomed in. The symbols carved into wood and etched in dirt formed patterns reminiscent of constellations or complex mathematical equations. I've seen these before, Clay said quietly. In the old mining tunnels beneath North Ridge. Indigenous warnings from before European contact. Later, miners added their own markings, all saying the same thing in different languages. Which is? Orlov prompted, The way is closed. What passes through changes. Silence fell over the room. Wren broke it by unfolding a topographical map, asking Lachlan to identify the clearing's location. "Approximately here," he said, pointing to a blank area between contour lines. "But that's what's strange. There shouldn't be a clearing there. It's all dense forest according to satellite imagery." Clay studied the map, tracing a finger along elevation lines. "There's an extensive cave system underneath. Old copper mines connected to even older natural formations. Most entrances collapsed, or were sealed decades ago." "Could the family have fallen into a mine shaft?" Orlov asked. "And built a shelter underground with trees that don't grow there?" Clay countered. "No, but there are stories." "What stories?" Wren pressed. Clay hesitated. "My grandfather was Yakima. He called that valley the Thin Place and wouldn't hunt. There, said it was where spirits could pass between worlds." Lachlan expected the officers to dismiss this as superstition, but instead, Wren nodded thoughtfully. "Would explain why search parties never found them. They literally weren't here anymore." "Or weren't visible," Orlov added. "Like they'd phased, just slightly out of our reality." Clay looked surprised at their willingness to consider supernatural explanations. "You've seen things in these woods," he observed. "Not a question. Enough to keep an open mind," Wren confirmed. "But whatever's happening, those are still missing people who need help." They spent the next hour preparing. Clay marked potential routes to the valley. Orlov gathered supplies, radios, first aid kits, emergency beacons. Wren called her supervisor, securing a 5-day rescue operation approval. "We leave in 30 minutes, she announced. "Pack light, but prepare for anything." As the others dispersed, Lachlan remained staring at the paused video. "They were looking right at my drone," he said. "All four, at the exact same moment, like they sensed it before they saw it." "Maybe they did," Wren replied softly. Lachlan's expression revealed mounting doubt. "I'm a hiker and photographer, not search and rescue. Maybe I should just provide the footage and—" "You found them when no one else could," Wren interrupted. "That connection might matter, but I won't force you." Lachlan straightened his shoulders. "No, I'm coming. Just scared, I guess." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. We'll need that where we're going." Outside, they loaded gear into Wren's truck. Clay arrived with a rifle slung over his shoulder. "For bears?" Lachlan asked nervously. "Among other things," Clay replied cryptically. As they prepared to depart, a park police cruiser screeched into the lot. Officer Orlov emerged carrying a plastic evidence bag containing Ezra Miller's journal. "Found something," she announced, opening to a dog-eared page. "Last night I reread his entire journal under UV light. There was invisible ink, written with lemon juice, like a kid's secret message. Ezra must have been hiding these entries from his family. The hidden writing was faint but legible. Something followed us from the ridge last night, watched our campsite from the tree line. Not animal, not human. Gemma and the kids don't see it, but it's watching us. I'm writing this while they sleep. The forest feels wrong today. Nico and Sadie arguing constantly, which isn't like them. Gemma developing a headache that won't quit. I keep losing time, minutes, maybe hours, where I can't remember what I was doing. Found myself standing at the forest edge twice today, staring toward the ridge. The lights are back tonight. So beautiful. Maybe we should follow them tomorrow after all." "He knew something was happening," Orlov said grimly. "Are we sure we want to find what he found?" Lachlan asked. Clay checked his rifle. "Want to?" "No." "Need to?" "Yes." Because whatever took that family has taken others before, and will take more if we don't understand it. They departed as dark clouds gathered on the horizon. The drive to the trailhead passed in tense silence, each lost in private thoughts about what lay ahead. At the trail's start, they shouldered their packs. Clay took point, followed by Wren, then Lachlan, with Orlov guarding the rear. The forest seemed to close around them immediately, the trail narrowing and shadows deepening despite the morning hour. 15 miles to where we establish base camp, Clay announced. From there, another 5 through unmarked terrain to reach the valley. If we push hard, we'll make base camp by nightfall. As they hiked deeper into Blackwell Forest, the usual woodland sounds, birdsong, rustling leaves, chattering squirrels, gradually diminished until they walked in unnatural silence. The only sounds were their own breathing and boots on the path. The wildlife is avoiding this area, Clay noted, voice barely above a whisper. Bad sign. 3 hours in, they passed the furthest point the original search parties had reached. 4 hours later, they crossed terrain none of them recognized from any trail map. By late afternoon, Clay raised his fist, signaling a halt. Before them lay a small stream cutting through the forest floor, water flowing over smooth stones. Nothing remarkable except every stone in the creek bed was arranged in perfect concentric circles. Nature doesn't do that, Orlov said, kneeling, to examine the pattern. This is where the normal forest ends, Clay warned. From here on, expect things that don't make sense. They filled water bottles from the stream, the liquid tasting sweeter than any natural water should. Lachlan photographed the stone circles, his camera suddenly beeping with low battery warnings despite being fully charged that morning. Electronics will start failing, Clay explained, seemingly unsurprised. Watches, too. Time moves differently ahead. As if confirming his words, Orlov checked her phone. That's impossible. It's showing 6:30 p.m., but we've only been hiking for 5 hours, and we started at 9 a.m. Best stop checking, Clay advised. It'll only confuse you more. They established camp in a small clearing as unnatural dusk fell. No one mentioned how quickly darkness descended, as if the sun had suddenly dropped below the horizon rather than gradually setting. Over a small fire, they ate energy bars and beef jerky in silence, until Lachlan voiced what they were all thinking. What exactly are we walking into? Clay stared into the flames. A border, maybe. A place where our world thins out and touches something else. The Millers crossed over somehow. We need to find out if they can cross back. And if they can't? Orlov asked. Clay didn't answer, but his hand moved unconsciously to his rifle. In the distance, faint blue lights pulsed among the trees. No one slept well that night. The pulsing blue lights remained visible through the trees, maintaining their hypnotic rhythm until dawn. When Lachlan finally drifted off near morning, his dreams were filled with whispered voices calling his name from just beyond hearing range. They broke camp at first light, eating cold protein bars rather than risking a fire. The forest had changed. Overnight. The trees now growing closer together, their bark darker, almost black. Moss hung in thick curtains from branches that seemed to reach toward them as they passed. Stay close, Clay warned. From here on, the trails won't make sense. They shift. Trails can't shift, Orlov objected, but her voice lacked conviction. In normal places, no, Clay agreed. Here, different rules. Lachlan attempted to document their journey, but his camera powered off after 3 photos. His drone remained. In his pack, its battery mysteriously drained. Even the compass Wren carried spun wildly, the needle rotating in complete circles rather than pointing north. How are you navigating? Lachlan asked Clay, who walked with unwavering confidence despite the lack of trail markers. Not by sight, the guide answered cryptically. By memory and feeling. My grandfather taught me how to walk through thin places. You listen to the forest differently. By midday, they reached a ridge overlooking a vast expanse of pines. Clay pointed to a barely visible break in the canopy about 5 miles distant. The valley, he confirmed, where your drone spotted them. Wren studied it through binoculars. Looks ordinary enough from here. Nothing's ordinary about that place, Clay replied. Those trees? They're wrong. Lachlan borrowed the binoculars. At first glance, the distant trees appeared normal, but as he focused, he noticed their unnatural symmetry. Each tree exactly the same height as its neighbors, spaced with geometric precision. They're too perfect, he realized. Like someone's idea of trees rather than actual trees, Clay nodded. The closer we get to the center, the less real things become. They descended the ridge on what might have once been a game trail but now seemed deliberately placed. Too even, too convenient in its switchbacks. The silence deepened until even their footsteps seemed muffled. Midway down, they discovered the first physical evidence connecting to the Millers. A child's hair ribbon tied around a branch. Pink fabric bright against the somber forest. Sadie's, Wren confirmed, carefully untying it. From the photos. Orloff bagged it as evidence. They came this way. Or were brought this way, Clay murmured. The trail abruptly disappeared at the base of the ridge, replaced by dense underbrush that hadn't been visible from above. Clay produced a machete from his pack and began clearing a path. The vegetation seemed to resist, branches whipping back with unnatural force after being cut. It's fighting us, Lachlan observed, nursing a scratch on his cheek from a recoiling thorn. Places have will, Clay replied, hacking steadily forward. Some want to be found, others don't. They pressed on through increasingly hostile terrain. Twice they had to backtrack when the path Clay cut sealed itself behind them. The third time, Orlov marked trees with bright orange surveyor's tape, only to find the tape missing minutes later. By late afternoon, exhaustion set in. Their water supply dwindled faster than it should have. Protein bars tasted like ash in their mouths. Each step required more effort than the last, as if gravity itself had intensified. We need to make camp, Wren finally decided, indicating a small clearing. Push on in the morning. We shouldn't stop, Clay argued. Night is when this place is most active. We'll collapse if we continue, Orlov countered. Look at Lachlan. The photographer was indeed struggling, his face pale and drawn. Even Clay showed signs of fatigue, his movements less precise than before. Fine, he relented. But we build a fire bigger than necessary and keep watches in pairs. No one sleeps alone. They gathered firewood, which proved unusually difficult to ignite, and established a perimeter with glow sticks. The temperature dropped rapidly as darkness fell, far colder than seasonal norms. Their breath fogged the air as they huddled near the reluctant flames. During first watch, Wren and Lachlan sat back to back, scanning the darkness beyond their camp. The others slept fitfully in sleeping bags, drawn close to the fire. Something's watching us, Lachlan whispered. I can feel it. Wren nodded. Since we crossed that stream with the circle stones, eyes on us constantly. Human eyes? I don't think so. In the distance, the blue lights appeared again, stronger than the previous night. They pulsed in complex patterns that seemed almost like language. They're beautiful, Lachlan murmured, finding himself inexplicably drawn to their rhythm. Wren gripped his arm. Don't focus on them too long. Clay warned me earlier. That's how it starts. How what starts? The influence. The pull. She looked away from the lights with visible effort. Ezra's journal mentioned the same thing. Looking at the lights made him lose time. Their watch passed in tense silence. When Clay and Orlov relieved them, Lachlan collapsed into his sleeping bag, exhaustion overriding fear. Sleep came instantly, deep and dream-filled. In his dreams, Lachlan walked a forest path illuminated by blue light. Ahead, Nico Miller beckoned, his movements fluid, yet mechanical. The boy's eyes reflected the blue glow. Pupils expanded until barely any iris remained. "We found a better place," Dream Nico said, voice overlaid with other voices speaking in unison. "A place where time doesn't matter, where we don't have to be afraid anymore." The dream shifted. Lachlan stood before the strange shelter from his drone footage, but now he could see inside. The interior was impossibly large, expanding beyond the physical constraints of the structure. Within, thousands of handprints covered the walls, some fresh, others ancient beyond reckoning. "Everyone who comes through leaves a mark," Nico explained. "You'll leave yours too." Lachlan jerked awake to find dawn breaking. The others were already up, looking equally disturbed. Over a breakfast no one wanted, they compared notes. "I dreamed I was following lights through the forest," Wren admitted. "Same," Orlov nodded. "And voices calling my name." "The Miller children," Clay added, "telling me about a place beyond the valley." Lachlan described his dream, ending with the handprints. Clay's expression darkened. "The handprint wall is real," he confirmed, "deep in the mine tunnels. I found it years ago but never told anyone. Every missing person case in these woods, there's a matching handprint on that wall. Some centuries old." "You think we're all having the same dream?" Orlov asked. "Not dreams," Clay corrected. "Contact. Something's reaching into our minds while we sleep, preparing us." "For what?" Lachlan asked, though he feared the answer. "For crossing over," Clay said grimly. "Whatever has the Millers wants us too." They packed in silence, the weight of his words settling over them. As they shouldered their packs, Orlov suddenly patted her pockets with increasing urgency. "My service weapon," she said, voice rising. "It's gone?" They searched the campsite thoroughly, but found no trace of her gun. "I slept with it in my jacket," she insisted, "right beside me." "We need to move," Clay decided. "Now!" They had traveled less than a mile when Wren seized Clay's arm, pointing ahead. There, in the middle of the path, lay Orlov's gun, disassembled into its component parts, each piece arranged in a perfect circle. "I didn't do that," Orlov whispered. "No," Clay agreed, carefully collecting the pieces. "They did, warning us they can reach us even when we're awake." As he handed the reassembled weapon back to Orlov, a child's laughter echoed through the trees, high and sweet, yet somehow wrong, as if played through a broken speaker. "Sadie," Wren breathed. They changed direction, following the sound. On the rear, forest grew darker despite the morning hour, canopy thickening overhead until only occasional shafts of light penetrated. The ground beneath their feet changed too, soil giving way to stone that Clay identified as not belonging to this region. "We're getting close to the barrier," he explained, "where this world thins out." "What exactly do you think is happening? To the Millers?" Lachlan asked. Clay hesitated. "My grandfather would say they're being changed, little by little, becoming part of whatever exists on the other side." "Can they be changed back?" Wren pressed. "I don't know," he admitted. No one, who's gone all the way through, has ever returned to tell. They crested a small rise and stopped short. Before them spread a wide clearing that perfectly matched Lachlan's drone footage. Except the strange shelter at its center was gone. Instead, the ground bore circular burn marks where it had stood. More disturbing were the trees surrounding the clearing. Each bore crude drawings in what looked like charcoal, childish figures with elongated limbs and two large heads. Above each drawing, carved into the bark with precision, were the same symbols Clay had identified from the mining tunnels. Orlov approached one tree, studying the drawing. These looked like Sadie's art style from her backpack. But who did the carvings? Wren wondered, tracing a symbol with her finger. Clay stiffened. Get back from the trees. Now. They retreated to the center of the clearing as Clay pointed to what they'd all missed. A perfect circle of darker vegetation surrounding the entire area. Barrier circle, he explained. Step over that without protection, you're vulnerable to influence. As if triggered by his words, the forest fell completely silent. No wind, no distant bird calls, not even the sound of their own breathing seemed to reach their ears. Then, simultaneously, all their watches began to beep. Lachlan checked his phone. The screen showed 3:33 a.m., though the sun still filtered through the canopy. Time's wrong here, Clay stated unnecessarily. Wren knelt, examining the circular burn pattern. Something was here recently. The shelter, Lachlan confirmed. But where did it go? Clay circled the perimeter, careful not to cross the vegetation boundary. There, he finally called, pointing to an area where the undergrowth had been trampled. They went that way. Recently. The trail led away from the clearing toward a rock formation barely visible through the trees. As they carefully followed, staying together, the blue light they'd seen at night now appeared in daylight. Pulsating. From somewhere beyond the rocks. We're getting close, Clay whispered. Whatever you do, don't respond if you hear your name called. Why not? Lachlan asked. Because it won't be us calling, Wren answered, her face grim with understanding. They approached the rock formation cautiously. What had appeared as a random pile of boulders from a distance revealed itself as deliberately placed stones surrounding a dark opening, the entrance to a cave. Beside the entrance, scratched deeply into rock, "Help us." Ezra's handwriting, Orlov, confirmed, comparing it to photos on her phone. They're inside. Wren stepped toward the cave. Clay caught her arm. Wait, listen. From deep within the cave came voices. The Miller family, calling for help in perfect unison, their words echoing with an undercurrent of other voices speaking alongside them. Not right, Clay warned. They're trying to draw us in. But something else emerged from the cave, a sound like sobbing, a child's genuine fear. For just a moment, they heard Sadie Miller's voice alone, unaltered and terrified. Please, help us. We can't get out, and they're changing us. The sound of her fear made the decision for them. We go in, Wren determined. But together. No one. Separates, no matter what. Clay nodded grimly. Into the thin place. As they switched on headlamps and prepared to enter the cave, Lachlan realized with sudden clarity that they were crossing a threshold from which they might never return. 4 going in, seeking 4 who had vanished. The symmetry felt deliberate, orchestrated. The cave mouth yawned before them, darkness swallowing their light. The blue glow pulsed somewhere in its depths, calling them forward. The cave entrance narrowed quickly, forcing them to proceed single file. Clay led, one hand trailing along the unnaturally smooth wall, the other gripping his rifle. Wren followed, then Lachlan, with Orlov guarding the rear. These aren't natural formations, Clay, murmured, his headlamp illuminating tunnel walls too uniform, too deliberately shaped. Old mining operations followed existing cave systems, but these sections were crafted. By who? Lachlan asked, his voice echoing strangely, as if the space were simultaneously larger and smaller than it appeared. That's the question that's haunted these mountains for centuries, Clay replied. Their headlamps created weirdly constrained circles of light, the darkness beyond seeming to consume the illumination rather than be pushed back by it. The blue glow they'd followed grew stronger as they descended, pulsing in rhythms that seemed almost like heartbeats. 100 yards in, the tunnel opened to a junction with 3 branches. Clay crouched, examining the dusty floor. Recent footprints, he confirmed. 2 adults, 2 children. They went this way. He pointed to the leftmost tunnel, which sloped gently downward. And the blue light? Wren asked, noting it seemed to emanate from the rightmost passage. A lure, Clay said grimly, like anglerfish using bioluminescence to attract prey. They followed the footprints, which sometimes disappeared on the stone floor, only to reappear yards later. The air grew colder as they descended, yet unusually dry for a cave system. No dripping water, no dampness underfoot. Anyone else notice? There are no bats, Orloff whispered. No insects? No cave life at all? She was right. The tunnels were sterile, devoid of the ecosystem that should thrive in such environments. The silence pressed around them, broken only by their footsteps and increasingly loud heartbeats. An hour into their descent, Lachlan paused, digging in his pack. I need water. They all stopped, suddenly aware of their burning thirst. Each took careful sips from dwindling supplies. How deep are we? Wren asked. Clay consulted an altimeter that had somehow continued functioning. Almost 800 feet below the entrance. That can't be right, Orlov objected. We haven't descended that steeply. Told you, Clay shrugged. Different rules here. As they prepared to continue, Lachlan's headlamp caught something on the wall, markings that hadn't been visible before. He approached for a closer look. Kids' drawings, he realized, just like the ones on the trees above. But these were different. The stick figures had been drawn with what looked like red clay, depicting a family of 4 approaching tall, thin beings with elongated limbs. The drawings grew more elaborate as they progressed down the tunnel, showing the family sleeping while the tall figures stood over them, then the family walking behind the figures deeper into a cave. The final drawing showed the family figures, beginning to stretch, their limbs elongating to resemble the tall beings. They're documenting what's happening to them, Wren whispered in horror. Sadie's drawings, Orlov confirmed, comparing them to photos on her phone. Same style. The tunnel widened suddenly, opening into a vast chamber. Their headlamps proved woefully inadequate, the beams extending only a few yards before being swallowed by absolute darkness. Stay together, Clay warned as they entered, and keep your light pointed at the floor. They inched forward in tight formation. The floor was no longer rough stone but smooth, almost polished, with a slight depression in the center like a massive bowl. I think I found a way to see this place, Lachlan said suddenly, pulling out his drone. The battery's dead, but the infrared camera might still work with my backup power bank. He connected the devices and pointed the camera into the darkness. The screen showed what their eyes couldn't perceive, a chamber nearly 100 yards across with perfectly circular walls. Throughout the space stood stone columns arranged in concentric rings, and everywhere, covering every surface, were handprints. My God, Wren gasped, looking at the screen. There must be thousands. Tens of thousands, Clay corrected grimly. Every missing person for centuries. The handprints varied in size, tiny children's hands alongside adult prints. Some appeared fresh, others were mere indentations weathered by time. Each print was pressed into the stone as if the rock had been temporarily softened to receive the impression. Lachlan panned the camera across the chamber, stopping abruptly. "There," he pointed. "In the center." The infrared revealed a raised stone platform at the chamber's heart. Atop it stood what appeared to be a vertical stone slab about 8 feet tall. The slab's surface rippled slightly in the infrared view, as if not entirely solid. "That's not stone," Clay realized. "That's the door." They approached cautiously. As they neared the platform, their headlamps finally revealed the structure. A massive stone archway filled with what looked like black glass that undulated subtly, its surface occasionally reflecting the blue light that still pulsed from somewhere beyond. At the base of the platform lay scattered items: a child's backpack, a woman's hiking boot, a camera, a broken flashlight, belongings of the Miller family. "They came through here," Orlov said, kneeling beside the backpack. She carefully opened it, extracting a notebook. Nico's journal. The boy's handwriting filled the first pages with normal entries about the camping trip, but the later entries became increasingly disturbed. Day 5. Dad's acting weird. Keeps staring at the forest. Mom has headaches. Sadie says she can hear singing at night, but I can't. I'm scared, but trying not to show it. Day 6. We followed the lights. Dad said it would be an adventure. Found a cave. Inside is beautiful, but I don't remember how we got so deep. My watch says we've been here for 3 days, but it feels like hours. Day 7. The tall people came. They don't talk, but we can hear them in our heads. They're showing us how to be like them. Mom and Dad are changing faster than me and Sadie. The final entry was a desperate scrawl. "If someone finds this, please help us get out. The door only opens sometimes. When it does, they come through. They're collecting us, changing us. Dad says we're evolving, but it hurts and I don't want to." The writing trailed off mid-sentence. "They're alive," Wren said firmly. "Or were, when they wrote this." "Alive but changing," Clay noted. "Just like the old stories." "Into what?" Lachlan asked. "Something that belongs on the other side of that." Clay nodded toward the undulating black surface. As if responding to their attention, the surface rippled more actively. The blue pulsing light intensified, now clearly emanating from the doorway itself. Orlov stepped onto the platform, reaching toward the surface. Clay caught her arm. "Don't touch it," he warned. "That's how they first connect." "Connect what?" she demanded. "Your mind to theirs," he said grimly. "Once connected, they can influence your thoughts, your actions." "Like they influenced the Millers," Wren realized. "Like they're trying to influence us now," Lachlan added, suddenly understanding the shared dreams, the voices calling their names. They retreated from the platform to examine the rest of the chamber. Their lights revealed more children's drawings on the walls, Sadie's artwork telling their story in pictures. The drawings showed the family following lights, entering the cave, meeting tall, thin beings, and gradually transforming to resemble them. "The entities appear to be teaching them," Orlov observed, studying one drawing showing a tall figure holding a child's hand, their fingers elongated and intertwined. "Or reprogramming them," Clay countered. The final drawing showed 4 figures that were clearly meant to be the Millers, but their proportions had changed. Limbs too long, necks extended, fingers like thin branches. Above them, Sadie had written in childish block letters, "New home on other side." "They've gone through," Wren concluded. "But can they come back?" "And do they want to?" Lachlan added. Their search revealed 2 more significant discoveries. First, a hide pouch containing ancient arrowheads mixed with more recent coins and metal. Buttons, apparent tributes left by those who knew of this place. Second, a natural chimney in the far wall that led upward, daylight barely visible far above. Another exit, Clay noted, probably connects to the ridge. As they consolidated their findings, a low humming began to emanate from the door. The black surface rippled more violently, blue light pulsing faster. "It's activating," Clay warned, raising his rifle. "The Millers?" Wren asked hopefully. "Or whatever they're becoming," Clay replied. The surface of the door stretched outward like a membrane, bulging in human-shaped impressions, two larger, two smaller. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the movement stopped. The humming ceased. The blue light dimmed. "It's not time yet," Clay said softly. "Doors still sealed." "Then we have a chance to get them back," Wren insisted. They gathered around the small camp stove Orlov produced, warming their hands and comparing notes. The chamber's chill had intensified, their breath visible in the air. "We could try to destroy the door," Orlov suggested. Clay shook his head. "These have existed for millennia. You'd need explosives that would collapse the entire cave system. Besides, we don't know if that would free the Millers or trap them permanently." "Then we wait for it to open," Wren decided. "And we get them out." "And if they fight us?" Clay asked quietly. "If they don't want to come back?" No one answered. The implications hung in the cold air between them. As they prepared a sparse meal, Lachlan noticed something strange about the handprints nearest their position. He approached carefully, examining them with his camera. "These 4 prints," he called to the others. "They're fresh. And look at the sizing. 2 adults, 2 children." "The Millers," Wren confirmed, measuring her hand against one print. "This would match Gemma's size." "They left their marks before passing through," Clay nodded. "Just like all the others. As night fell above, though they had no way of knowing the time in the depths of the cave, they established a watch rotation. Sleep came uneasily to those not on duty. Dreams haunted by whispered voices, and visions of a world where everything was slightly wrong. Trees too perfect, water too clear, sky too blue. During his watch, Lachlan noticed the door's surface responding to their presence, subtle ripples appearing whenever one of them moved. The thing was aware of them, studying them just as they studied it. Morning, as determined by Clay's still functioning watch, brought no change in the perpetual darkness of the chamber. They ate the last of their rations, discussing options. "We can't stay much longer," Orlov pointed out. "Supplies are low." "I'm not leaving without the Millers," Wren insisted. "You might not have a choice," Clay replied gently. "If that door doesn't open soon," a child's laughter echoed through the chamber, cutting him off mid-sentence. All 4 froze, listening. The sound came again, seeming to emanate from the walls themselves. "Sadie!" Wren called out. No answer. Then, a child's voice from everywhere and nowhere. "Hide and seek! Come find us!" The blue light pulsed suddenly brighter, and the door's surface rippled violently. Something was coming through. "Get back!" Clay commanded, positioning himself between the door and the others, rifle raised. The surface of the black portal bulged outward like a membrane stretched to breaking point. Blue light poured through in pulsating waves, casting their shadows in multiple directions simultaneously. The temperature in the chamber plummeted until their breath emerged as thick white clouds. "Is it the Millers?" Lachlan whispered. Camera raised despite his shaking hands. Before anyone could answer, the surface parted like a curtain. Through the opening stepped a figure that resembled 12-year-old Nico Miller, but wrong in subtle, disturbing ways. His proportions had shifted. Arms too long, fingers elongated with an extra joint, neck extended beyond human norms. His movements were fluid, yet mechanical, as if his joints operated on different principles than human anatomy allowed. Most unsettling were his eyes, entirely black, except for pinpricks of blue light where pupils should be. "You came," the boy said, his voice overlaid with deeper tones that echoed unnaturally. "We've been waiting." Ren stepped forward despite Clay's warning gesture. "Nico? Are you okay? Where's your family?" The boy's head tilted at an impossible angle. "They're coming. We wanted to see you first." His gaze fixed on Lachlan, the watcher who found us. "What happened to you, Nico?" Ren pressed gently. "We're changing," he replied, expression serene. "Becoming better. The old ones are teaching us." "Teaching you what?" Orlov asked. "How to exist beyond time. How to move between." His elongated fingers gestured toward the door behind him. "There's so much more than your limited perception allows." Clay kept his rifle trained on the boy, though his expression revealed inner conflict. "Who are these old ones?" Nico smiled, too wide, teeth slightly too sharp. "They've been here since before humans walked upright. They live in the thin places where realities touch. They've been collecting us, teaching us, preparing us." "For what?" Ren demanded. "For the thinning, when all boundaries dissolve." The boy's voice shifted, becoming more childlike, momentarily more human. "It doesn't hurt anymore. The changing. I was scared at first, but now I understand." The portal rippled again. 3 more figures emerged: Sadie, Gemma, and Ezra Miller, each transformed in the same disturbing manner as Nico. They moved in perfect synchronization, forming a semicircle beside the boy. "My team," Ren said firmly, addressing Ezra. "We've come to take you home." The thing that had been Ezra Miller smiled with the same too wide expression as his son. "We are home, Ranger Tucker. More home than we've ever been." His voice carried the same layered quality as Nico's, as though multiple entities spoke through him simultaneously. "You're being controlled," Clay stated flatly. "This isn't you speaking." "Not controlled," Gemma corrected, her head swiveling with bird-like precision. "Expanded. We understand now. We see what's coming." Little Sadie, whose transformation seemed less advanced than the others, stepped forward. "The old ones want to meet you," she said, her voice alternating between childish and ancient. "They've been watching you since you entered the forest." 4 transformed Millers extended their hands in perfect unison, beckoning the rescue team toward the portal. "Just step through," Ezra urged. "See what we've seen. Learn what we've learned." Clay backed away, motioning the others to follow. "We need to talk," he muttered. "Alone." The Miller family didn't pursue as the rescue team retreated to the far side of the chamber, though their unnaturally reflective eyes tracked every movement. "That's not the Miller family anymore," Clay whispered urgently. "Or not entirely." "They're still in there," Ren insisted. "Did you see Sadie? She's less changed than the others." "Because she's resisting," Orlov suggested. "Children often have stronger mental defenses against manipulation than adults." Lachlan's camera screen showed something their eyes couldn't see. Faint. Tendrils of blue light extending from the portal to the Millers' bodies, pulsating in rhythm with their movements. "They're tethered to it," he realized, showing the others his screen. "Like puppets." "Can we cut those connections?" Ren asked. Clay shook his head. "They're not physical. They're something else." "Then we grab them," Orlov suggested. "Physically remove them from this place." "And if that kills them?" Clay countered. If they can't survive in our reality anymore? They had no answer. The ethical complexity of their situation was unprecedented. We need to understand more, Ren decided. Learn what these old ones want, without getting close to that portal, Clay warned. They approached the Miller family again, maintaining distance from the doorway. The family remained unnaturally still, waiting. "Tell us about the old ones," Ren requested of Ezra. Fatifi, transformed man, smiled. "They existed before your kind evolved. They inhabit spaces between realities." "Why are they changing you?" Orlov asked. "To help us survive what's coming," Gemma answered. "The great convergence when boundaries fail." "They've been collecting people for centuries," Nico added. "Teaching them, changing them, preparing a new form that can exist when worlds overlap." Clay gestured toward the thousands of handprints. "All these people, they were taken like you?" "Chosen," Ezra corrected. "Special, receptive to the call." "Not everyone can hear the voices or see the lights," Gemma explained. "Only those with the capacity to perceive beyond normal boundaries." "And what happens to those who can't or won't change?" Clay pressed. The family exchanged glances, their movements synchronized like a single organism considering its response. "They remain limited," Sadie finally answered, her voice momentarily childlike. "Trapped in linear time, unable to survive." "The thinning." Lachlan stepped forward. "When is this thinning supposed to happen?" "It already began," all four replied in perfect unison. "Centuries ago. Accelerating now. You've felt it. Technology failing. Time distorting. Reality shifting. The forest," Ren realized. "The changes we experienced coming here." "Early symptoms," Ezra nodded. "The boundaries weakening." Orlov was examining the handprints nearest to them. "These people, are they still alive? Still conscious?" "In a way. You wouldn't understand," Gemma replied. Lachlan's camera suddenly detected movement from the portal. His screen showed massive shapes shifting just beyond the opening, tall, impossibly thin figures moving with liquid grace. "They're coming," he warned the others. "The old ones want to meet you," Sadie said, excitement raising her voice to a more childlike pitch. "They rarely interact directly with unmodified humans." Clay raised his rifle again. "Stay back!" The Millers didn't appear concerned by the weapon. Instead, they turned toward the portal with reverent expressions. The opening widened, the black surface retracting like an iris. Through it emerged entities that defied human comprehension. Towering figures at least 9 feet tall, with bodies so thin they appeared two-dimensional when viewed from certain angles. Their limbs moved with impossible fluidity, as if not constrained by joints or bones. Where faces should be, they had only smooth surfaces occasionally rippling with patterns of light. The chamber's temperature dropped further. Ice crystals formed on the rescue team's eyelashes and beards. Their electronic equipment failed simultaneously. Headlamps dying. Lachlan's camera shutting down. In the darkness, only the blue glow from the entities and the transformed Millers died der Snoden, treats. Eyes provided illumination. The old ones moved toward the rescue team, with graceful, floating motions that covered distance without seeming to take steps. "Don't look directly at them," Clay warned through chattering teeth. Too late. Lachlan had already made eye contact with the nearest entity. He froze, expression shifting from terror to wonder. "They're speaking," he whispered. "In my head. They're showing me." His voice trailed off as he stared, transfixed. Orlov grabbed his shoulder, shaking him. "Lachlan! Break contact!" He blinked, rapidly, tearing his gaze away with visible effort. "They showed me the future," he gasped. "Or a future. Everything connected. Time like a web instead of a line." The entities halted their approach, maintaining distance. Through the Millers, they began to communicate. "You are invited," Ezra stated, voice resonating unnaturally. "To witness, to learn, to prepare." "For what?" Ren demanded. "The convergence approaches faster than anticipated," Gemma replied. "Years, not centuries. The barriers thin exponentially." "What do you want from us?" Clay asked, rifle still raised, though his hands trembled from the supernatural cold. "Messengers," Nico answered. "To return and prepare others, or stay and transform. The choice is yours." Sadie approached Ren, her movements less fluid than her. Family members, suggesting she retained more of her humanity. "I was scared too," the little girl said, her voice briefly normal before shifting back to the layered tone. "But it doesn't hurt anymore, and we can do amazing things now." To demonstrate, she raised her hand. The stone floor beneath her rippled, like water, reshaping itself into a small sculpture of a bird that broke free and actually flew around the chamber before dissolving back into stone. "Matter responds to consciousness here," Ezra explained. "Reality is malleable in the overlap between worlds." Clay retreated further from the portal, motioning the others to follow. "We need to leave. Now." "You cannot escape what's coming." "The key," Millers said in unison. "The thinning affects your entire world." "Then we'll deal with it there," Ren countered. "As humans." "Please," Sadie suddenly broke from the family group, her voice momentarily her own. "I want to go home sometimes. I miss my friends. I miss ice cream and my dog." The other Millers exchanged glances, their expressions hardening. The old ones drifted closer to Sadie. "The child resists integration," Gemma stated mechanically. "This is why we invited you. To help her understand. To complete her transition." Ren's expression set with determination. "Or to help her escape." The Ewer chamber trembled slightly, dust falling from the ceiling. The old one's blue glow intensified, patterns of light across their featureless faces accelerating. "You misunderstand," Ezra said, voice deepening further. "This is not imprisonment. This is salvation." "Let the girl decide," Clay challenged. Sadie looked between her family and the rescue team, internal conflict visible on her partially transformed face. The old ones moved closer to her, their towering forms casting long shadows that seemed to reach toward the child. "I want," she began, her voice fluctuating between human and other. Before she could finish, Ezra seized her arm with his elongated fingers. "The child isn't fully integrated. She cannot choose rationally." Ren stepped forward. "Sadie, do you want to come with us?" "Don't answer," Gemma commanded, her voice overlapping with inhuman tones. The chamber shook more violently. Cracks appeared in the walls. The handprints began to glow with the same blue light as the portal. "The convergence accelerates," Nico announced. "The door will seal soon to stabilize the boundary." "Last chance," Ezra stated. "Stay and evolve. Or return and face extinction when the thinning completes." Ren locked eyes with Sadie. "Do you want to come home?" For one brief moment, the little girl's eyes cleared of their blue glow. She nodded almost imperceptibly. "Now!" Clay shouted, lunging forward to grab Sadie while Orloff and Ren positioned themselves between the family and the child. Lachlan stumbled, backward, nearly falling. His hand pressed against the wall for support, directly onto one of the ancient handprints. A jolt of energy surged through him. Suddenly, his mind filled with voices. Thousands of them, the collective consciousness of everyone who had ever been taken, and they were terrified. Through their combined memories, he understood the truth. The transformation wasn't evolution, it was consumption. The old ones weren't preparing humanity for a coming convergence, they were harvesting consciousness, feeding on it, using human perception to anchor themselves more firmly in reality. "They're lying!" he shouted. "They're not saving anyone!" The chamber convulsed violently. The old ones surged forward as one, their forms stretching impossibly as the rescue team retreated toward the tunnel entrance, Clay carrying a struggling Sadie. "Run!" he commanded. They fled into the tunnel as the chamber collapsed behind them, rocks falling as reality itself seemed to buckle. The blue light pursued them, illuminating their desperate escape. Behind them, the inhuman wails of the old ones mingled with the synchronized screams of the remaining Miller family, their voices distorting into something beyond human comprehension. They ran blindly through collapsing tunnels, ducking, falling, rocks as the entire cave system shuddered around them. Clay led the way, still carrying Sadie, who alternated between struggling violently and going unnaturally still. Lachlan stumbled along last, his mind still reeling from the cascade of memories absorbed from the handprint. "Left fork!" Clay shouted as they reached a junction. "The right leads deeper." Their headlamps had miraculously reactivated once they'd fled the chamber, but the beams flickered erratically, threatening to leave them in darkness. Behind them, blue light pulsed in pursuit, illuminating the tunnel in strobing flashes. "They're coming!" Orlov warned, glancing back. The pursuing light cast monstrous shadows that stretched and contracted along the walls, elongated figures moving with impossible speed, gaining on them with each step. "There!" Wren pointed ahead to a narrow fissure in the wall. "That wasn't there before." "The cave is reconfiguring," Clay gasped. "Reality's breaking down near the portal." "Through here!" Wren squeezed into the crack. "It leads upward." One by one, they pressed through the narrow opening, Clay passing Sadie to Wren before squeezing through himself. The fissure opened into a vertical chimney, a natural air shaft. "Climb!" Clay ordered. "Use the wall braces." Ancient iron rungs had been driven into the rock, forming a primitive ladder. They ascended frantically, the metal creaking beneath their weight. Behind them, blue tendrils of light probed through the fissure, searching. Halfway up the shaft, Sadie went rigid in Wren's arms, her eyes blazing blue. "They're calling me back," she said, her voice fluctuating between childish terror and inhuman calm. "The family link is strong." "Fight it, Sadie," Wren urged. "We're getting you out." "But my family—" Tears streaked the girl's transformed face. "Mom, Dad, Nico. We'll come back for them," Wren promised, though the uncertainty in her voice was evident. Above, a circle of gray daylight appeared, the shaft's exit. Clay reached it first, pulling himself onto the surface and extending his hand to help the others. One by one, they emerged into fading afternoon light. They stood atop the ridge, the forest stretching around them, deceptively normal in appearance. But in the valley below, blue light pulsed faintly through the trees where Lachlan had first spotted the strange shelter. Clay carried Sadie to a fallen log and gently set her down. In daylight, her transformation was even more disturbing. Skin nearly translucent, fingers too long, neck unnaturally extended. Yet something in her eyes seemed to be fighting, struggling to maintain humanity. "We need distance from this place," Clay stated, scanning the trees nervously. "They'll come for her." "We can't move her yet," Wren objected. "Look at her condition." Sadie trembled violently, her body seeming to flicker between more and less human states, as if two realities battled for dominance over her form. Lachlan, Orlov turned to the photographer, what did you see when you touched that handprint? You said they were lying. Lachlan sank to the ground, head in his hands. Thousands of memories. People taken over centuries. The old ones aren't preparing humanity for some cosmic event. They're parasites. They feed on consciousness, on perception. They need us to anchor themselves in reality. Why? Wren asked. They're not from here, not from any here we'd understand. They exist in the spaces between realities. They've been forcing their way through, using human consciousness as a bridge. He looked up at them, eyes haunted. The thinning is real, but they're causing it, not saving us from it. Every person they convert weakens the boundaries further. Clay nodded grimly. The ancient warnings make sense now. The tribal elders knew. All those handprints, Orlov murmured. All those people. Still conscious, Lachlan confirmed. Trapped, aware. Thousands of minds linked together, powering whatever the old ones are building. Sadie gasped suddenly, back arching. They're coming up. They can't let me go. I know too much. Her eyes cleared momentarily. Ezra's journal, she whispered urgently. Dad hid the real one, under the stone near our tent. We searched the campsite, Wren said gently. We found his journal. Not the real one, Sadie insisted. The complete one. He figured it out days. Ego started writing everything in secret. The journal you found was meant to be found, just enough to make someone look for us. Clay and Orlov exchanged glances. Worth checking, Orlov decided. I'll go, Clay volunteered. I'm fastest through the forest. You three get her to the ranger station. Before they could object, he shouldered his rifle and disappeared into the trees, moving with practiced silence. We should keep moving, Orlov urged, eyeing the shaft entrance warily. They fashioned a stretcher for Sadie from jackets and branches, but as they prepared to lift her, the girl's body went rigid again. They're here, she whispered. The forest around them fell unnaturally silent. The afternoon light dimmed, as if clouds had covered the sun, though the sky remained clear. Between the trees, blue lights appeared, pulsing in complex patterns. Run, Sadie pleaded. Leave me. I'm still connected to them. We're not abandoning you, Wren stated firmly. Lachlan pulled out his camera, which was working again on the surface. The screen revealed what their eyes couldn't see. 3 approaching figures moving with synchronized grace. Ezra, Gemma, and Nico Miller, even more transformed than before, their bodies elongated to impossible proportions, skin translucent enough to see blue light pulsing through their veins. Family reunion. Ezra's voice echoed between the trees before they appeared. Physically. Return our daughter. She doesn't want to go with you, Wren called back, positioning herself protectively in front of Sadie. The 3 transformed Millers emerged from the tree line, moving as one organism. Behind them loomed taller shadows, the old ones still partially concealed. The child doesn't understand what's at stake, Gemma said, her voice no longer containing any human quality. We understand perfectly, Lachlan countered. I touched the wall. I saw the truth. The Millers paused, their expressions changing subtly. Then you know resistance is pointless, Nico stated. The process has begun. It cannot be reversed. You're being controlled, Orlov said. Fight it, like Sadie is fighting. We aren't controlled, Ezra replied. We are elevated, enhanced. The human perspective is limited, trapped in linear time. We see beyond now. You see what they want you to see, Lachlan insisted. As they argued, Sadie's condition deteriorated. Her body flickered more rapidly between states, the blue glow beneath her skin intensifying. She's unstable, Gemma observed. The connection is pulling her back. Without proper completion of the transformation, she'll be trapped between states, unable to exist fully in either reality. You're lying, Wren accused, though doubt clouded her expression as she watched Sadie suffer. Ezra approached slowly, hands raised in a gesture of peace. We want to help her. She's in pain because she's fighting the inevitable. The transformation has gone too far to reverse. Sadie cried out suddenly, her body contorting. It hurts, she sobbed. Make it stop. Let us take her, Nico pleaded, his voice momentarily more human. We're still her family. Wren looked torn, watching Sadie's agony. Is there truly no way to reverse this? The connection to the other side can't be severed once established, Ezra stated. It's like trying to unpour water. From the trees behind them came a shout. Clay emerged, running hard, a leather-bound book clutched in his hand. Don't listen, he called. I found the real journal, the transformed Millers hissed in unison, their bodies elongating further as they turned toward Clay. He skidded to a halt beside the others, breathing hard. Ezra figured it out, he gasped, opening the journal. Listen to this. The entities require consent. They can influence, they can lure, but they cannot take. That's why they use family units. Once one member accepts transformation, they use that emotional connection to manipulate the others. But rejection is possible. The tether can be broken. He flipped pages frantically. Here. I've been experimenting when they think I'm sleeping. Their control weakens with distance from the portal. Strong emotions, especially fear and love, disrupt their influence. Most importantly, they lie about the transformation being irreversible. I've seen it partially reversed in Sadie when she thinks about home. The transformed Millers advanced menacingly. Lies, they stated in unison. Human desperation. Ezra Miller no longer exists as you knew him. Then why did he hide this journal? Clay challenged, continuing to read. If anyone finds this, the transformation progresses in stages. The early stages can be reversed if the subject is removed from their influence and reminded strongly of their humanity. I'm hiding this where they can't reach. Their physical forms can't move far from the portal yet. They need fully converted humans to extend their reach. Sadie gasped, her eyes clearing momentarily. Dad? She whispered. Dad wrote that? Yes, Clay confirmed. He was fighting them, Sadie. Part of him was still trying to save you. The transformed family shrieked in unison, the sound piercing and inhuman. Behind them, the shadows of the old. Ones writhed in apparent agitation. Take her and run, Clay commanded, pushing Ezra's journal into Wren's hands. Get her to the ranger station. I'll hold them here. You can't fight them alone, Orloff objected. I'm not fighting, Clay replied grimly, pulling a flare gun from his pack. I'm buying time. Understanding dawned on Wren's face. The old ones can't stand bright light. It disrupts their perception. Exactly. Now go. They lifted Sadie onto the makeshift stretcher and fled down the ridge path as Clay fired the first flare directly at the advancing Miller family. The red chemical light exploded between them, momentarily disrupting their synchronized movements. Behind them, they heard more flares firing, followed by inhuman shrieks of distress. Clay was giving them the head start they desperately needed. Halfway down the ridge, They encountered the first search team coming up, park rangers and police responding to Wren's last radio call before it failed. As the reinforcements rushed toward the commotion above, Wren, Orloff, and Lachlan continued their descent with Sadie. "Stay with us, Sadie," Wren urged as the girl's condition fluctuated. "Think about home. Think about your dog." "What's your dog's name?" "Be Bandit," Sadie whispered, her voice more human than before. "He's a beagle. He sleeps on my bed even though Mom says he shouldn't." "Good. Keep thinking about Bandit," Wren encouraged. "What else do you love at home?" "My treehouse, my books, strawberry ice cream." With each memory, the blue glow beneath. Her skin dimmed slightly. Her fingers, though still unnaturally long, seemed to shorten incrementally. "It's working," Lachlan observed in wonder. Ezra was right. As they reached the base of the ridge, Sadie suddenly seized Wren's hand. "But what about Dad? And Mom? And Nico? Can they come back too?" Wren exchanged glances with the others. "We'll try, Sadie. But first we need to help you." The girl's face crumpled. "They're too far gone, aren't they? I could feel it. They let the old ones all the way in." None of them had an answer that wouldn't break her heart further. Above, on the ridge, flares continued to illuminate the darkening sky, followed by the sound of gunfire. Clay and the reinforcements were engaged with whatever pursued them. "Almost to the vehicles," Orloff encouraged as they staggered along the final stretch of trail. A terrible scream echoed from the ridge. Human, not the alien shrieks they'd heard before. Someone had fallen. "Clay," Lachlan whispered, looking back, in anguish. "Keep moving," Wren ordered, though her voice broke. "We can't help him now." As they loaded Sadie into the ranger truck, they saw it. Blue light spreading across the ridge like wildfire, pulsing with malevolent intensity. Whatever had happened up there, the old ones were expanding their influence. "Drive," Wren instructed Orlov. "Don't stop for anything." As they sped down the forest road, Lachlan looked back one last time at Blackwell Forest. Through his camera screen, he could see what human eyes couldn't. The entire ridgeline glowing blue and shapes moving among the trees that defied natural law. Whatever was happening had only just begun. 3 days later, Lachlan sat alone in the small conference room of the ranger station, staring at his laptop screen. Outside, government vehicles lined the parking lot. CDC, FBI, even unmarked. Black SUVs that everyone knew belonged to agencies that officially didn't exist. Blackwell Forest had been evacuated and quarantined. A toxic spill, the official cover story. Sadie Miller lay in a secure medical facility 50 miles away, her condition stabilizing as the blue glow beneath her skin gradually faded. With each passing hour, her physical form reverted closer to human baseline, though doctors warned she would likely never be completely the same. Wren entered, looking exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, her uniform rumpled from too many hours on duty. "Any word on Clay?" Lachlan asked, though he already knew the answer. Wren shook her head. The rescue team never found him. 3 of their members disappeared during the search. They're calling off any further attempts. And the ridge? The blue light spread to cover nearly 10 square miles last night. They've established a perimeter, but... She trailed off, the implications clear. Whatever had been contained in the cave system was expanding its reach. Officer Orlov joined them, shutting the door firmly behind her. "The briefing's in 5 minutes. Military's taking over. They're bringing in specialized equipment. Electromagnetic pulse generators, experimental tech. They think they can contain it." "They don't understand what they're dealing with," Lachlan said quietly. "This isn't a physical threat they can bomb or shoot." "I know," Orloff agreed. "I've been trying to tell them. They keep asking about weapons, defenses. They're thinking in human terms. Ren spread a map across the table. The affected area is growing geometrically. At the current rate, it'll reach the nearest town in a week. And then it keeps growing, Lachlan added grimly. Just like those, things said. The thinning accelerates. They fell silent, the weight of responsibility crushing down. They were the only ones who had seen the truth, who understood what was really happening. Yet, their accounts were being filtered through military and scientific perspectives that couldn't grasp the reality. My drone footage is all corrupted, Lachlan said suddenly. Everything I recorded in that valley shows nothing but empty forest. Even the backup files. Same with our body cams, Orlov confirmed. All blank or showing normal woodland scenes. They're erasing evidence, Ren realized, making sure no one else sees what we saw. Lachlan opened a file on his laptop, the only intact image he had managed to recover. A single frame showing the Miller family in the clearing, their forms already beginning to transform, eyes reflecting blue light. In the background, barely visible between trees, stood tall, impossibly thin figures watching. This is all I have left, he said. One frame that proves we're not crazy. A sharp knock interrupted them. A stern-faced military officer entered without waiting for a response. The briefing's starting, he announced. General Hargrove wants all first-hand witnesses present. They followed him to the main meeting room, now transformed into a tactical center with computers, communications equipment, and grim-faced personnel. As the briefing began, Lachlan found himself tuning out the military jargon, the talk of containment protocols and extraction plans. They didn't understand. They couldn't understand. His mind drifted to Sadie, alone in her hospital room. During a brief supervised visit yesterday, she had gripped his hand with her still too long fingers and whispered, "They're still calling me. In my dreams. They say, they're coming for everyone." The military general's voice cut through his thoughts. "We believe this is an unprecedented form of psychological warfare using hallucinogenic compounds dispersed through the cave system. Our team will neutralize any hostiles and extract any remaining civilians." Lachlan exchanged glances with Ren and Orlov. The military was preparing to fight human adversaries. They had no concept of what waited in those woods. After the briefing, they were dismissed, their part in the operation officially over. They were to provide written statements, undergo psychological evaluations, and speak to no one about what they'd witnessed. Outside, in the parking lot, they paused by Lachlan's Jeep. "What now?" he asked quietly. "We tell the truth," Ren decided. "Find someone who'll listen." "And if no one does?" Orlov countered. Lachlan looked toward the distant ridge, barely visible beyond the tree line. Even from here, he imagined he could see a faint blue glow among the pines. "Sadie is the proof," he said finally. "She's changing back. That means others can, too." "Including her family?" Ren asked, hope tinging her voice. "I don't know," he admitted. "They were much further along. But maybe—" "We go back," Orlov stated. Simply. "Not with them." She nodded toward the military personnel loading equipment. "On our own. Find Clay, if he's still alive. Try to reach the others." "It would be suicide," Ren objected, though her tone suggested she was already considering it. "Maybe not." Lachlan opened his laptop, showing them Ezra's journal entries he had photographed. Ezra discovered their weaknesses. Light disrupts them. Strong emotions, especially love, interfere with their control. They require consent to fully transform someone. "A rescue mission," Ren murmured. For the Miller family. For Clay. For everyone they've taken, Orlov added. As they spoke, Lachlan's phone buzzed with a notification. A text from the hospital where Sadie was being treated. Patient requesting your presence urgently. Says only you three will understand. They drove in tense silence, arriving at the facility as evening fell. Security had been heightened. Armed guards at every entrance. ID checks at multiple checkpoints. Whatever the authorities might publicly claim about a toxic spill, they clearly understood something truly dangerous was happening. In her room, Sadie sat upright in bed, looking more human than when they'd last seen her. Her fingers had nearly returned to normal proportions, her neck no longer unnaturally extended. Only her eyes retained a hint of otherworldliness, slightly too large, the irises containing flecks of blue light. "They're coming," she said, without preamble. "Tonight, I can feel them gathering strength." "The old ones?" Wren asked gently. "And my family," Sadie nodded. "But not just them now. Others. People who were taken before. They're all connected now. All working together to widen the door." "Sadie." Lachlan knelt beside her bed. "How are you fighting their influence? What's helping you change back?" The girl considered. "Thinking about home, about normal things. Remembering who I really am," she paused. "And hating them for what they did to my family." "Emotion," Orlov noted. "Just like Ezra wrote." "Can you still sense your family?" Wren asked. "Are they still themselves at all?" Tears filled Sadie's two large eyes. "Sometimes, when the old ones aren't directly controlling them. I can feel them struggling, especially Dad. He fights the IB hardest." Lachlan shared a glance with the others. If Ezra was still fighting, there might be hope. "We're going back for them," he told Sadie. "We think we can help them like we helped you." "You can't," she whispered. "It's different now. The door is opening wider. They're coming through in force." As if confirming her words, the hospital lights flickered. Outside, car alarms began blaring in the parking lot. "They're already here," Sadie whispered. The lights failed completely. Emergency generators hummed to life, bathing the room in dim red light. In the corridor, shouts of confusion echoed. Orlov drew her service weapon, moving to the door. "Stay with her," she instructed Wren and Lachlan. "I'll check the hallway." She stepped out, closing the door behind her. Moments later, they heard a single gunshot, followed by silence. "Daphne?" Wren called, reaching for the doorknob. "Don't," Sadie warned. "They're out there." Through the small window in the door, they could see the corridor filling with blue light. Shadows moved through it, elongated, impossibly proportioned. "The window," Lachlan urged, already moving to open it. "We need to get Sadie out." The hospital room was on the second floor, a drop of about 20 feet to the manicured lawn below. As Wren helped Sadie from the bed, Lachlan stripped sheets to fashion a makeshift rope. The door handle turned slowly. They froze, watching as it rotated completely. The door remained closed, locked, but began to vibrate in its frame. "Hurry!" Sadie pleaded. As Lachlan secured the sheet rope to a heating pipe, the door splintered inward. Standing in the threshold were Ezra, Gemma, and Nico Miller, transformed beyond what they'd seen before, their bodies almost unrecognizable as human. Behind them, Orlov stood motionless, eyes glowing blue, gun hanging limply at her side. Family reunion, the three intoned in perfect unison. The circle completes. "Dad," Sadie whimpered. "Mom, Nico, please." For a fleeting moment, something flickered in Ezra's inhuman eyes. Recognition, desperation, a silent plea. "Run." His voice emerged, briefly his own before the chorus of other voices overwhelmed it. "Can't hold them back much longer." Wren grabbed Sadie, pushing her toward the window where Lachlan held the sheet rope ready. "Go," she ordered. "I'll hold them off." "But—" Sadie began. "Now!" Wren shouted, placing herself between the girl and her transformed family. Lachlan helped Sadie onto the window ledge, guiding her hands to the makeshift rope. "Climb down. I'll be right behind you." As Sadie descended, he turned back to see the transformed Millers advancing on Wren. Behind them, more figures appeared in the corridor. Hospital staff with glowing blue eyes, moving with the same synchronized, "Oh, Grace! Wren, come on!" he called. The ranger stood her ground. "Get her somewhere safe," she replied without turning. "Somewhere they can't find her. Use Ezra's journal. Find a way to fight back." She drew her knife, a poor weapon against what faced her, but she brandished it with determination. In that moment, her silhouette against the blue glow reminded Lachlan of ancient warriors facing monsters from legend. The window was their only escape. With a last anguished look at Wren, Lachlan climbed out and descended rapidly to where Sadie waited below. As his feet touched the ground, he looked up to see Wren framed in the window, surrounded by blue light, her shadow merging with the transformed figures closing in. Then she was gone, pulled back into the room. "Run!" Lachlan told Sadie, grabbing her hand. "Don't look back." They fled across the dark hospital grounds. Behind them, blue light spread from window to window as the hospital fell to the influence of the old ones. In the parking lot, people moved with unnatural coordination, heads turning in unison to track their escape. At the perimeter fence, Lachlan boosted Sadie over before climbing after her. They ran into the surrounding woods, using darkness as cover. Only when they reached the main road, a mile from the hospital, did they slow. Lachlan's Jeep was back in the parking lot, inaccessible now. They were on foot, a partially transformed child and a photographer with nothing but a camera and a copied journal, facing an expanding invasion of interdimensional beings. "What do we do now?" Sadie asked, her two large eyes reflecting the moonlight. Lachlan looked back toward the hospital, now just a cluster of lights in the distance. Blue light pulsed from its windows, spreading outward like a slow-motion explosion. "We find help," he said, though he had no idea who would believe them. "We keep you safe, and we find a way to rescue the others." "Do you think they can be saved?" Sadie asked, the question carrying the weight of impossible hope. "My family? Ranger Tucker? Officer Orlov?" Lachlan couldn't bring himself to lie to her. "I don't know, but we have to try." As they walked along the dark road, headlights approached from behind. Lachlan tensed, pulling Sadie into the roadside brush for concealment. The vehicle, a battered pickup truck, slowed as it neared them. From the driver's window, a familiar face peered out. Clay Martinez, bloody but alive, his expression grim in the dashboard lights. "Get in," he called. "They're spreading faster than we thought. We don't have much time." As they climbed into the truck, Lachlan saw Clay's back seat was filled with supplies, food, water, weapons, camping gear, preparation for a long journey. "Where are we going?" Sadie asked. Clay met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "To find others who know about the thin places. People who've fought these things before." "There are others?" Lachlan asked, hope kindling. "This isn't the first time they've tried to come through," Clay confirmed, accelerating away from the hospital. "Just the most successful." In the distance behind them, blue light continued to spread, reaching for the horizon. Whatever was coming through that door in the cave had found its way out. The boundary between worlds was failing. The choice that faced them now was stark: run and survive, or fight for those already lost. Clay seemed to read Lachlan's thoughts. "We're coming back for them," he assured. "But first, we need to understand what we're fighting." Lachlan nodded, one arm around Sadie's shoulders. "And we need to warn everyone." "Who would believe us?" Clay asked. Lachlan's hand went to his camera, hanging around his neck, the single frame of evidence he'd salvaged. "They'll believe when they see it spreading. By then, it might be too late." As they drove through the night, Sadie gazed out the window at the stars. "They showed me what they want," she said softly, "when I was changing. They want everything. Our world, our minds, our perception of reality itself." "And what do they do with people once they're fully changed?" Lachlan asked, dreading the answer. "They hollow them out," she whispered. "Use their bodies like suits. Their consciousness just becomes fuel." The truck's headlights cut through the darkness as they fled a danger the world wasn't ready to face. Behind them, blue light expanded. In their wake, patient, relentless, inevitable. Clay adjusted the rearview mirror, no longer looking back. "First light, we reach the mountains. I have friends there. Then we plan our return." Lachlan nodded, determination hardening. Whatever happened next, he knew with absolute certainty that the normal world he'd known was ending. Reality itself was under attack from something that existed outside its boundaries. And the only people who understood the truth were in this truck, racing against a tide of blue light. That was the end of this story. I hope you enjoyed this suspenseful journey into the unknown. Where are you listening from? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this tale, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more intriguing stories like this one. Don't forget to share with your friends and family who enjoy a good mystery or supernatural thriller. It helps spread kindness and awareness while supporting the channel. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.